So I genuinely believe that no matter what genre you produce, you can probably learn something from Keinemusik. Because if you've listened to any of their music, it's simple, like really simple. And yet those simple tracks have almost 500 million streams, and they've pretty much solidified themselves as like the go-to DJs of Afro House. So I actually took some time to sit down, analyze, and break down nearly every single one of their tracks when I came across a couple techniques they use in nearly every song. And in this video, I'm gonna be laying out a process that you can follow to help you make not only more engaging music, but actually take the pressure off of making good music. So what exactly sets Keinemusik apart?
Like when we first started, it was just like grooves and jumps and grooves and drums, like pretty long, 9 minutes, nothing else. And now like all our tracks like have more like a structure, more like a song structure to it. So I think it adapts more to the world right now, where we can connect all the different genres. Now we're like more on the more vocalist kind of side. And like we try to team up with different artists as well, like to have like new worlds going into our electronic music world. So that's quite easy. It feels like more like a structured kind of thing, and you can just do whatever you want right now.
So even though their music sounds simple, if you actually listen really carefully to some of their biggest tracks, you'll start to pick up on a couple techniques and a couple clear rules that they use in, again, nearly every track. So instead of going headfirst into sound design and the technicalities of Afro House, I'm actually really going to be talking about the music theory behind Keinemusik, which means I'm not going to be going super deep into technical sound design or mixing, because at the end of the day, if a song idea or a melody doesn't sound good on a simple sound like a piano or a basic synth, then all the sound design in the world won't make up for it. Okay, now if I could describe Keinemusik in one word, I'd probably say they're very unrestricted. Here's what I mean by that. So usually when you go to start making a track, your thought process might go something like this. Okay, so let me start off with a nice little chord progression. I don't know what chords I want to use or what key I'm in. Let's start with the melody. Maybe I'll start with the melody. I have no idea what I'm gonna do. Maybe instead of a melody, I should do like a bass line. Now, if that looked like you, just know that that approach can kind of put you in a box right from the jump, right? You're starting with a predetermined chord progression or a bass line, and what if instead of restricting ourselves right at the beginning, we took a different approach? Instead, let's just try and start with one note, just one constant note. We'll call this our musical anchor. So picture a perfectly straight line that never shifts, and instead of starting with a melody or a bass line, you simply just lay down one constant steady note. And with that constant note, you can kind of experiment with the rhythm, or you can have it long and sustained, but at the end of the day, it's just one note. Now, after we have that one note, you start to build a melody or a bass that goes around that note. Now, this melody or bass can move and shift really high or go low or hover close or even come back to that line. Now, think about how we already know that major chords sound happy, minor chords sound dark, and diminished chords kind of add a little bit of suspense. Now, with that same anchor note in place, as you start to change notes in your melody or your bass line, the relationship to that anchor note starts to change and give you different feelings. Now, here's an important thing to think about. Because you're not locked into a fixed chord progression, it's perfectly okay to have those unexpected notes that deviate from the key if they serve the emotion of your track. Now, this technique lets you invoke the emotions of complex chord progressions by using simple intervals, all without sacrificing the simplicity that makes Keinemusik sound so unique. And by freeing yourself from a strict sequence like a predetermined chord progression or bass line right from the drum, you allow your melody to breathe and evolve around that anchor note. That single unchanging element is actually the secret behind so many of Keinemusik's tracks, and it's a technique in music theory known as pedal point. So in tracks like Move or The Rapture Part 3, you can actually see and hear how they lean into that simplicity by starting off with that anchor element, that one note that kind of anchors the whole groove together, and then letting the melody kind of interact and evolve around it in some pretty unique ways. All right, so now in the DAW, let's start with just putting one repeating note. This is gonna be my musical anchor, and I'm pretty much gonna use it to build my melody around. Now, you can build your own melody, or you can use a loop, or you can remix a track if that goes well with your note. I think I'm gonna go with this Bad Bunny vocal from his track Calladita. I think it sounds pretty good.
Ella es calladita, gozándose la vida como es. Ella es calladita.
Okay, now it's simple and this is good where it's at, but if you want to go one step deeper, you can actually just change things up ever so slightly with that anchor note by just shifting a couple notes within the key to some pretty close spots, maybe 1 or 2 intervals higher, just so you can add more variation to your anchor to keep things a little interesting. Yeah, and I think that sounds pretty good. Okay, now here's something even more interesting. Have you ever noticed that Keinemusic's tracks never really feel overcrowded? So despite all the things that are kind of happening in the track, your ear kind of naturally focuses on just a few elements. But have you ever wondered why? So it turns out there's actually kind of a reason for this. So science and music theory tell us that the human ear can naturally really only focus on up to 3 musical phrases at a given time. But that doesn't mean you're limited to just 3 elements in your track. Instead, it really just means that at a given moment, there should only be up to 3 elements in the spotlight. Everything else is kind of just there to support or enhance those main ideas, not compete with them. So going back to this track we're making, let's choose to only focus on the vocals, we'll focus on this lead synth, and then we'll focus on the drums. Now, it's not to say that we can't add anything else, but if we do, it needs to support those 3 elements. So you can do that by copying the rhythm from one of our main 3 elements, you can copy the pitch from one of the main 3 elements, or you can add kind of ornamentation to tie in phrases as we transition to different sections of the track.
Ella es calladita.
By the way, if you want to listen to any of the tracks I make in these videos, the link is in the description. But now, the final piece to Keinemusic's success actually really isn't the great music. It's really more about knowing when to reinvent your sound and position yourself in a way that people are ready to listen to your music. They were actually one of the first to jump on this trend of Afro House because they understood the art of timing. But as an artist, when do you know it's time to start switching things up? How do you spot these early signals of change and reinvent yourself before the rest of the crowd does? Well, in this next video, I'll show you exactly how Mal P perfected this process, which, by the way, Keinemusik followed to the T, and how you can apply those same strategies to your own music.